Hey, welcome back to Driver 88. Now, when I think of Bentley, I think of Continental. It's one of the oldest nameplates in the motoring world. It dates back all the way to 1952. And I'll be honest, I'm a little bit of an old soul, and I think some of the best looking Grand Touring coupes of all time are the original Fastback and the 90s Continental R. The car that we've got today is no longer made, and it had quite a famous W12 split engine that I think is something missing from today's Bentley, something that's rather unique. So we're going to find one and take one for a drive and see whether it's worth buying a Continental GT W12. So the third generation Continental GT W12. In my opinion, I think this is the best looking Continental GT generation. The previous one is kind of not aged that well, I think, and the new one just looks slightly different. The hybrid with the sort of eyelashes on the end, it doesn't look any better. What I love about this car is that you can really actually see the design aesthetic has similarities to that original Fastback Continental from the 1950s. Just a really, really good looking car. But of course, everyone has different opinions. Now, that all important W12, let's have a listen. Now, whilst it doesn't sound that amazing when it's standing still, it does have a real unique character of its own and a ton of torque, 900 Newton meters worth. Now, this is a kind of interesting cylinder design. It's a little bit like this with two VR6s put together, and they don't make them anymore, which I think makes this car relatively special, but I really want to take it for a drive to find out. This thing is just gargantuan, and of course they just don't make V12s, let alone W12s in the market at all these days. So this thing, now it's a little bit depreciated because it's a few years old now and discontinued. Is it potentially worth buying? All right, so here at the Cavallo Service Center, which has just opened not that long ago, and it is absolutely huge and services pretty much every brand you could possibly imagine that they have for sale. So we've got Oliver here, who's worked on a whole range of brands over his career. Am I crazy in getting the W12 over a V8?
My opinion is it's all down to power, of course.
Yeah.
V12 will be a much more smoother ride just because we got more cylinders and the engine is more balanced compared to a V8. The W12 has the biggest brakes in the market just because of the weight and the power of the vehicle.
Yeah, I think they're 2.2 tons or something like that.
Yeah.
So brake wear, pad wear is going to be more expensive, probably go through them a bit quicker than the V8 is one thing.
Yeah, that's one thing.
What about servicing?
Having worked on cars, I find it the most easiest supercar to work on.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, just because it's got one drain plug and an oil filter, which is all in the same area. So if you got a bit of mechanical know-how and you're confident enough, you could probably do it yourself.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough. I think this car's coming out to like 60K. I think this one's about 5 years old. Is there anything I should sort of be worried about or looking for, or what advice would you possibly give?
Best advice is do a pre-purchase inspection.
Yeah.
Check the service history, see if it has the full service during its lifetime.
Yeah.
I'd check the tires, brake condition. Pretty much that would tell you how the car was driven.
Yeah.
Doing a pre-purchase check, going up in the air, check the suspension system, suspension components, check for oil leaks. If it's clean, it's good. I mean, you got scan tools as well nowadays, which the first thing you want to do is see fault codes and stuff. You could work through it or see something major is actually registered in the vehicle.
Oh, thanks very much for being on the channel, man. Really appreciate it. We'll go back to driving that W12. So there is a decent amount of space back here. The quilted leather is really quite comfortable. We've got USBs here and two cup holders. No iPads, sorry, Zoomers. But given that this is a bit of a fastback design, my head kind of touches the roof a little bit. So not super comfortable, but very, very nice. And just look at these LEDs and quilted stitching, lovely. Now, getting into the W12, you are met with just this massive expanse of piano black and leather. Though I do feel with this Bentley GT that there's just a little bit too much piano black, which of course easily scratches and swirls. But it is incredibly comfortable and daily drivable. Fuel use, of course, is not going to be your friend. We have a large tank, but we also have an average fuel consumption of 12 plus. And I can imagine if you want to do some sporty driving, you're going to be getting into the 14s, 16s, etc. Now, this one has the upgraded Bang & Olufsen sound system. You could also get a name sound system for something like $20,000 or so. I do love the name brand in audio. Quite a small sporty steering wheel for such a large car, and I like that because this isn't just it's not a Rolls Royce is what I'm gonna say. This is a sporty Grand Tourer. Naturally, the NVH is fantastic in this thing, but when you turn things up into sport mode or start using the paddles with this 8-speed ZF, you've got a rather satisfying amount of sound coming from the W12. It's not like V12s at all. It's got its own character and voice of its own. That's not like a Ferrari or Aston Martin or anything like that, but it definitely has a good character about it. And some of these shifts actually are quite satisfying too. If you didn't know, going back all the way to the 1930s, 1950s, Bentley actually used to advertise their cars as the silent sports car, which is interesting given that we now have cars like the Rolls-Royce Spectre, which of course is a silent sports car. I personally would prefer a little bit of noise with a Grand Tourer like this though. Now let's talk performance from this hand-built 6-litre W12. So we've got 626 horsepower with, wait for it, 900 newton meters from 1300 RPM. So practically when I turn this big boy on, we've got 900 newton meters underfoot. And in sports mode, it is actually surprisingly receptive to your right foot. Of course it does it in a nice progressive manner, but this thing will still run to 333 kilometers per hour with a 0 to 100 time of 3.7 seconds. I have a feeling though that that's a little bit conservative, and we could get maybe 3.6, 3.5 if we're on a good surface with good tires. Speaking of good tires, we do have enormous 315 P0s on the rear. We are of course in an all-wheel drive car, and in driving this thing around today, it has a really, really good turning circle. It is a hefty boy at 2.4 tons, but the weight is neutralized quite well by all these aids, and of course just all that torque. It's really, really satisfying to weave through sweepers and stuff, and that's what it's all about, grand touring, right? As the original content was for traversing continental Europe, this car is just perfect for the Autobahn and long drives. Really, really pleasant to drive. We have a 48 volt sort of anti-roll system, which is making the ride incredibly compliant over bumps and traversing broken road. Oh. We can use the ZF in a manual mode. It's not super sharp, but I don't think that's really the sole focus of this car. But once it gets going, it is relentless. And I honestly could daily drive one of these. And speaking of daily driving, let's get to cost. So back when this was new, this is 460,000 Australian dollars. And that's before options, but after taxes. So this car that we're sitting in is basically over $500,000 Australian dollars when it was brand new. Our friends at Cavallo are asking, I think around 300 flat or so before taxes. And naturally with a car like this, they do depreciate quite a fair bit, as they always have. And of course, we don't have the W12 anymore. The new one is a V8 hybrid. And as I said, I personally think that this looks better than the new car. And it also looks better than the second and first gen Continental GTs. So the Continental W12, it seems like all cars these days in this sort of grand touring class of car are all 4-litre V8s. They're all the same. They don't have as much character as the sort of unique V8s and W12s like this of the past. And I think that much like the Continental R of the 90s, maybe in good time, some of these cars will be somewhat collector's items, heavily depreciated, but kind of lusted after a little bit more than today, due to the fact that everything is just going to be, of course, EV or V8 twin turbo. So that's the vlog, guys. This is driver 88. I'll see you next time.